What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about Mechajammer and its 1.1 update, the Refracted update. Now, this particular video is sponsored by Mechajammer's publisher, Modern Wolf, and today we're going to be talking a bit about Mechajammer as a whole, and specifically what was added with the 1.1 update. Now, I personally actually did a review for Mechajammer when it launched, and I will link that video down below as well in case you want a more in-depth explanation of what Mechajammer is. I will say, however, that the 1.1 update significantly updates a great deal of the game. In fact, we are talking new character portraits, new armor items, new vehicles, new gang side quests, more companions and quests in general, an event log, as well as hundreds of other enhancements. So first things first, let's talk about what Mechajammer is just by itself. Mechajammer is an isometric CRPG that is rooted in 80s action movies meeting sci-fi dystopia. So if you're familiar with 80s action movies, you can honestly kind of get the vibe they were going for, which I think lands pretty well. Now, one of the unique things about Mechajammer is that rather than real-time with pause or turn-based, it uses what is called simultaneous turn-based, meaning that when combat starts, everyone is moving all at once, like with real-time with pause. However, when you stop moving, the action stops, meaning that other characters only take their turns when you take your turns, but it is all happening at once, and if you want to pause, just stop doing things. Now, beyond that, Mechajammer had a pretty robust character creation system that allowed you to roleplay almost in an immersive sim style in their world, that is the world of Calitana, or the city that you crash landed in, and your main objective for the game is to just get out of this city with your life intact. Some of my favorite things about Mechajammer are, for starters, the way you go about getting companions. So in this particular title, you can have a party of up to like 15 or 20 people kind of running around with you, and you do this by making social charm rolls by just talking to random people on the street. You can basically recruit anyone by rolling a persuasion roll of sorts. And depending on how high your social study actually is, which is like a skill, you can get kind of just a massive following of people running around with you, which is one of my personal favorite things to do. But you combine that with the vehicles, which are a lot of fun to drive around the city itself, which you can even engage in combat from. And you have an almost immersive sim level of role-playing opportunity to gather up these big crowds of people, engage in vehicle combat, and kind of run around just terrorizing the city if you so choose. But in addition to all of those things you can do, which are a lot of fun just by themselves, I appreciate Mechajammer's sort of old school take on RPGs where they don't really attempt to hold your hand in a lot of ways. There is a tutorial that you can skip through that will kind of run you through the basics of how to play the game. But in the end, the main objective, which is getting off of Calitana, is largely up to you, and how you go about that can change pretty significantly. Do you align yourself with one of the many gangs, or do you just kind of go solo and only focus on the main objective and just the very act of how you go about accomplishing your goals? Do you go in gun blazing, or do you sneak around and avoid combat? There's a ton of choices that all make Mechajammer a really fun throwback, especially with its art style. From here, let's talk about some of the more significant changes, starting with character creation. So character creation saw quite a few updates. For starters, we have a few more portraits for our character, and then from there we have even larger changes. For starters, you can actually pick a main color for your sprite, which is a little touch, but I enjoyed it. So you can kind of click those colored dots next to your portrait here and pick a color for the sprite that you're actually going to be using in-game. Then from there, we have to talk about our character's flaws. So in this particular game, you have virtues and studies. Virtues are like your attributes, whereas studies are like your skills. Now, your virtues in particular are limited a little bit by your character's age. So part of character creation is filling out a survey of sorts about your character's age and occupation before the game starts. Now, previously, for every age bracket presented in the survey, you would pick a job and then an associated flaw, which would give your character points in their studies, as well as increasing the maximum learning and occult virtues that you were able to assign to your character. Now, in order to use learning or occult effectively, you had to raise your character's age quite a bit, which meant taking on a bunch of flaws, which made it hard to make a good character that way. So as a result, one of the flaws you can pick for your character now is actually called flawless. This will remove the flaw from picking out your character's background, allowing you to raise their age without taking on a bunch of flaws, making a very hard to play character. Now, the downside of the flawless background, or flaw if you will, is that you actually don't get any points put into your studies as a result, which in my opinion makes character creation much more interesting. There's a lot of trade-off to giving your characters flaws or having them go with the flawless flaw, which will allow you to raise your virtues to higher levels without taking a penalty, but simultaneously won't increase your studies that much. Now, after we get out of character creation, what about character progression throughout the rest of the game? Now, previously, with the regular launch version, there wasn't a traditional level up system, meaning that you wouldn't be gaining experience. You would be finding items throughout the game that would act as your level ups. That would give you your points in your studies after you found these items, which would increase your abilities and functioned as your character progression. However, this particular update adds a more traditional experience system, which I think is going to help most people jump into the title with a great deal of ease in comparison to the previous system, which is still an option that you can pick right after character creation. So if you preferred that approach, which is a little more exploration-based, you can absolutely continue on with it. In addition to those rather major changes, we also see the addition of smaller changes like a rest system. So outside of combat, this will let you pass the time a little bit, which is important for some of the quests as they actually involve doing things at a certain time or around a certain time. So being able to advance time is definitely very helpful. We also see more practical stuff, like there's just more save slots available for your character now. Previously, this was a little bit limited, but now you actually have quite a few. And then one of my personal favorite additions, as a bit of a math nerd in this regard, is the event log. So the event log is this log in the bottom right of the screen that kind of tells you how things are going. Now, this will actually give you a breakdown of your skill checks or the things you are rolling for, be that aim or damage, etc., when you make an attack or perform some sort of skill roll. You can see all of that information down in the event log, which is going to help a great deal in determining why actions are happening the way they are. Like, why did you fail this skill or why did you succeed? You can now see the math happening behind that, which is going to help a lot of people get up to speed with why and how things are happening in a game like this. We also see the addition of, just in general, helpful features. We actually have more vehicles to play around with now. We can see things like motorcycles or larger vehicles. There's even like a little skateboard type one that I thought was pretty cool. All of these have varying statistics and can hold up to different amounts of damage, which makes running around the city of Calitana shooting from the back of your little hoverboard type vehicle a big kick for me. I enjoyed that a lot. But we also see the addition of a little bit of help with the stealth system. So previously the stealth system could be a little hard to decipher, whereas now, when we enter stealth mode, or even outside of stealth mode, when we move our cursor over a shadowed area, we will see a blue outline on our cursor indicating that that location is shadowed, which definitely makes engaging with systems like stealth a lot easier to understand even on a visual level, which definitely makes stealth characters a lot more viable. Moreover, the difficulty of the game itself seems to have been given a little bit of a tuning pass, if you will. As I mentioned in my review of the title, the beginning area of the game was quite tough if you didn't take advantage of a few certain abilities. However, that seems to be addressed in this patch, as this time the beginning areas of the game were much easier. It was also easier to get my character outfitted the way I want, which also saw us picking up new types of items. For instance, we now have wearable body armor, which, as you might imagine, helps you take damage without dying immediately. And frankly, just gives us more options to build our character in addition to the fairly robust system of character creation they've built already. And honestly, even everything I've listed here is really just the tip of the iceberg with how very large this update was for this game. The 1.1 Refracted update for Mechajammer is definitely like playing a much more refined version of the launch title, and as a result, it's much more enjoyable. So if you're waiting for an opportune time to jump into Mechajammer and actually try it out, I think there's no better time than now. This update was massive, it improved the game a great deal, and I think it's definitely worth your time. The update itself is out now. It is a free update. It costs nothing. You are more than welcome to check out the Steam page, which will be linked down below if you'd like to purchase the game if you haven't already. But the update was a free addition to the base title. So with all of that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know how you feel about Mechajammer down below. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I truly do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.